the nurse was visibly emotional, and I just burst into tears because she told me how much she cared about me as a person. And, that was really the defining moment where, I knew I was either going to die in my addiction or I was going to, die doing something else.
We know you as an advocate for harm reduction, and you speak about your years of lived experience as a recovered drug addict. Can you tell us a little bit about what led you to try to recover?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of factors. I mean, obviously, I was struggling with a bunch of unknowns that I didn't really realize why I was struggling for so long. I just, thought maybe my life was destined to continue to use substances, but the reality was is that I was dealing with, a lot of trauma and undiagnosed learning disabilities at the time, which I couldn't figure out why I would continue to go back to something. And even though they helped, at the same time they were hurting me. And so I just got caught up into this, kind of rut where it, lasted for so long. And, obviously for me in my life was the connection to harm reduction services that really kind of worked with me, through the process, and giving me access to other support services such as detox and treatment. And then, obviously for me, I think the final straw was my sixth overdose, which occurred on February 18th, 2013 at the supervised consumption site. And the nurse was visibly emotional, and I just burst into tears because she told me how much she cared about me as a person. And, that was really the defining moment where, I knew I was either going to die in my addiction or I was going to, die doing something else. And that's really kind of how it started again. But I'm trying to stay sober my whole life, multiple times through, over a dozen times through treatment, and trying to get sober 50 other times as well. And you stay sober for
Hmm.
3 months, 6 months, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 days, and then you finally put it all together. The sad thing in our society today is that doesn't often happen with a lot of people.
What was different about this time?
Well, just it was just the sequence of many moments that led to that moment. But I think that it dawned on me that things were not getting better of in my own life, in the sense of that I was just living a painful existence of survival for so long, and that's really all I knew. I really needed somebody not to tell me how to live. I needed somebody to show me how to live. And, I'm grateful for all the people that, really got me to that point where
Mm.
I was able to be successful.
Can you tell us about that road to you being successful? Because I imagine when you made that decision after February 18th, 2013, there was probably still a lot of uncertainty as to whether this would be the time that would stick. What happened as what were the steps that you took in those early days?
Well, I mean, I had to separate myself from being in that environment was the first thing that I had to do. And that was the first step of many steps. And that's challenging in itself. So I relocated to another area where I wouldn't be so triggered to use substances. I also got on an OAT medication at the time,
Opioid
methadone,
agonist
which
therapy. Hmm.
correct, yeah, methadone, which stabilized my life, so I wasn't so hell bent on going back to use the substances. And then obviously as well, I had a support group of supportive people, namely my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, but she was a massive support in really when I met her and she came back into my life. It really was having her. I mean, she really took the time to support me and help me get to meetings that I needed to get to, and really started to rebuild my life there. Help me get out of understand that if I had outstanding debts that through credit cards to pay those off, to build a credit line, to get my learner's license. I mean, there were so many things that went into starting a new life. You're really
Right.
starting over with nothing, and you really need some things that we take for granted, in our own lives today are really such a challenge for people. I had to get my ID back. I had to, so many factors went in, pay off the bills, establish a credit line. Somebody had to teach me all those things in life, which I had no
Mm.
knowledge about because I was just so busy surviving it.
Who did that?
My wife Brienne. I mean, she
Mm.
she she just was there. She showed up at the recovery house and basically said, if you're all in on doing this life, then I'm all in it with you. And I said, I'm
Mm.
all in. So, that was the having that support was just, it was instrumental in my success. I mean, I needed somebody to actually, I had a lot of self doubt, low self worth, low self esteem, and I needed somebody to be there to say, no, like you are worth it. And you have to work for it too, and somebody to push me there, and that's really what I wish could happen with a lot of other people.
Hmm. Did you face stigma as you try to, get all of this back, all of this together?
Yeah, immensely. I mean, I couldn't even get people wouldn't hire me because of my criminal record, of having over 55 drug convictions. I mean, yeah, so I had to volunteer to get it start that way. I volunteered for 9 months, and then an organization said, "Hey, you actually do really good work, and we can pay you." And they were paying me under the table as well back then. And that started. At least I was getting paid something, and then I got a job in a private treatment center, and after that, and really just started, working. And I worked for such a low wage at the time. It was like $13 an hour. Um, $13 an hour at the time, but I didn't care what it was. I was just glad to be working and helping people. That was my gift, is
Hmm.
that I enjoyed helping people.
Did you ever suffer any setbacks or temptations?
Not the last time, really, after the February 18th time. My sobriety date's March 18th. No, I mean setbacks in using, no, but before all that, oh yeah. I mean, I relapsed. Gosh, I mean, hundreds of times. I mean,
Mm.
I was always trying to get sober. I was never good at staying sober, and a lot of people are trying, but it's just
Right.
one of those. It's just really challenging to get to the next steps, and really, I don't care if you go to treatment. The thing is what happens after treatment is the most important aspect of it, and I don't think we do a good enough job anywhere in North America of what happens after treatment.
Hmm. I'm wondering about that. Your story is so personal to you, but you work with, obviously you work with others, trying to help others who are dealing with substance use. What can be learned from your experience?
Well, I mean, you can, you got to keep trying. I think is the most important thing, and don't beat yourself up when you have setbacks. I mean, setbacks are how we learn in life. I always tell people, don't make the same mistakes over and over again. Make a new mistake, like learn something new, or learn how to make some a new mistake, and then this way you can learn from that. And you can put the pieces together. But one of the biggest things with stigma that impacts the substance user is when they do relapse, just the tremendous amounts of shame that they feel. And that's where you really have to be there to uplift them and say, listen, it's okay. These things happen. It's not like you're abnormal. I mean, heck, you use drugs your whole life. I wouldn't expect you to just get off them and not use them again, right? So you have to be really, encouraging in those moments, because like
Hmm.
I say to people, is that I was really good at beating myself up. I didn't need others to do it for me.
What's missing in our system right now to provide that? Where do you see the gaps?
I see two gaps. I see the gaps of obviously getting access to treatment in a timely fashion, but I also see the huge gap is really after people complete treatment. If our whole goal is to complete treatment drug free, but then people don't have successful lives after, then what's the point? You really have to have the back end support with. housing, employment opportunities, resume building skills, learning life skills, like learning how to take care of things, banking, get your ID back. All these other aspects really need to be talked about a lot more moving forward, because there's a lot of unknown for people who are going through treatment of what their life is going to look like afterwards. And so we have to let them know what that's going to look like, or what services we can provide for them to get to that next step. And I think if we can start doing those things, we can really kind of have a lot of influence in people continuing the path, instead of just, giving up and going back to what's familiar, because that was really the biggest thing, that I kept going back to using the substances because it was so challenging to move forward in learning how to live a new life. And so we have to do a better job at supporting people, and I think that falls on corporations and companies to start hiring people as well, to give people purpose. If we can do that, I think we can have a lot more people become successful in the quality of lives that they achieve.
Hmm. And on that, how do you convince companies who may have their reservations about that? Criminal record checks are routine, right?
Oh, 100%. If I was like a store like London Drugs or Shoppers Drug Mart, and I had somebody apply for a job and was a prolific shoplifter and he was rehabilitated, I'd hire him on my security team, because nobody would get anything out of my store. So you really have to look at the assets that people could bring you
Hmm.
after they've rehabilitated, which is really powerful.
How do you
Um,
ensure, though? I guess the concern is you don't know if they're going to commit that crime again.
but you don't know that about anybody.
Hmm.
You could say the same factor with anybody else that you hire. It's like, just because they're, you have to really kind of have the belief as well, as that, people do want to change. And I know they do. It's just not as easy. And especially with the employment thing, I mean, that really gives people some purpose, some
Hmm.
some income earning, some self-worth, some self-esteem. That's the stuff that's really important in people's lives. And I help people get jobs all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, people do want to give people an opportunity. I just think that we need a lot more people doing it.
And where you work, you said you started working at a private treatment center, and now you are a peer clinical advisor for the BC Center on Substance Use. What brings you back to this personally? What do you take from it?
Well, like, people do change and people do get better and people live honest and lives with integrity. And, I mean, I try to just pay forward what was given to me to others. And, one of the things I often do is, speak quite frequently in, the high schools to kids, to let them know that, hey, we're all going to have our struggles, but like, reach out and, ask for support. I just find it really, inspiring for me to tell my story to others, but also to hear their stories really kind of inspires me as well to, keep doing what I'm doing, because, I know people are listening and watching. And so, that's the part that's most special to me, is my ability to try to help other people who struggle, not, or if they, not to go down the same path that I once did, but if they do as well, that there is help and support.
Guy, I really appreciate your generosity and sharing so much today. Thank you very much.
Oh, anytime, Michelle. Thanks a lot.